Hello everyone! As someone who loves sparkly, beautiful, unique eyeshadows but also works a full-time office job, I am always on the hunt for neutral eyeshadows that I can wear to work but still have that va-va-voom that I love in my makeup. So I figured I would go ahead and find my neutral or neutral adjacent beautiful shadows and share them with you all if you are like me and looking for those shades that check both boxes. So today we're going to be covering my true neutral favorite sparkly shadows, and then next time we'll be covering my neutral adjacent beautiful sparkly shadows in a part 2 video. So if that sounds good to you, go ahead and just keep on watching and subscribe so you don't miss part 2. I feel like an important caveat to the beginning of this video is that neutral is different depending on your skin tone. And so I tried to take that into account when I was picking out my shade recommendations. Keep in mind, I have a very fair skin tone, and since this is like my actual eyeshadow collection, these are definitely tailored to my skin tone and my preferences. But I tried to include some options that may work for different skin tones. So if you see one and you're like, that's not a neutral, it may be a neutral for a different skin tone other than yours or mine. And with that, let's go ahead and get started. First up here in the corner, we have the Touch of Glam shade Poor Unfortunate Souls. This is like the most neutral version of a kind of like greenish brown duochrome. So this has a very like neutral leaning shift on it. It does have something kind of green in it, but compared to some of the more stark duochromes in this category, this appears very neutral on the eyes. You can see it's got some separate like glittery particles in there that really sparkle, but it also does have like a kind of standard sheeny finish as well. This one I find does crease on me, so keep that in mind if you're planning on things that are going to last 9 to 10 hours at work without any disruption. This one might not be the best for that, but I can't deny it is a very special neutral shadow. Next, we've got the shadow Asteroid from Pretties for Your Face. This one, if there's a hint of something green in this, there's a hint of something bluish purple in this one. But if you've got a cooler undertone, I think that you could wear this without it being too much at work. You can see what I mean about that bluish silver sparkle on top, but from far away, it more so looks like a wet shadow and less like a purple or a blue shadow, and you can really draw it into a neutral place with this brownie mauve base that it has. This shade is one of 3 of the Terra Moons shimmers that we have in this collection today. This is the shade Palladium, and these are beautiful special neutral shadows. So they don't have any shifts to them. They do have more neutral bases to them, like this one is a rose gold. A little bit later, we've got more of like a kind of, I don't know, bronzy gold, and then a little bit more of like a golden green color. But these are beautiful, sparkly shades that can blend into different skin tones. And for $6, I think they're one of the best offerings that Terra Moons has. This next one is a depotted single shadow from the Sephora collection. This is the shade number 24. It's a take on a blue-brown duochrome, but just like Asteroid up here, I think that there's something about this one that grounds it a little bit more than my other blue-brown duochromes. I'm wondering if maybe it has something to do with the fact that this is more of a like sheen rather than a piecey sparkle like some of my other shades in this category. But either way, I thought that this is a good one that has a grounded neutralness to it, but is still a little fun for work. Now we've got two Sydney Grace shadows in a row. The first one is the shade Peace, and then the second one is the shade Phosphines. And I feel like the Sydney Grace formula is perfect for those neutrals that have a little something more. You can see these shades both have some really beautiful dimension and shine to them without being too much for an everyday scenario. And they have a lot of different undertones in this formula to choose from, so you can find something that really complements your skin tone. We'll come across a few other Sydney Grace shades a little bit later on. Actually, one of those shades is right now. I forgot. This is the shade Tiara, and this one is a little bit more taupey, whereas the others have something more rosy to them. But again, depending on who you are, the depth and the undertones of your skin, I think that any of these could work and be a very natural but put together look. The next few might be some of the most out there I have in this palette. This first one is from Lethal, and this is the shade Mercredi. I'm pretty certain I'm pronouncing that wrong, so forgive me. I feel like this one has some strong similarities to the Sephora collection shade I showed earlier. You can maybe see the bases on these are very similar. What's different is that this one leans a little bit more blue, whereas this one leans a little bit more green. So depending, again, on your own personal preferences, one may be better for you than the other. This is the shade Abracadabra from Luxie, and again, this one's got something green going on in it, but it's not enough to be considered a colorful eyeshadow in my opinion. I feel like as you see it swatched out, you can see it's more so just a wet looking shine on top and not any like really hardcore colors. It does have a little bit of a pink shift in it as well, but again, nothing too strong that I wouldn't be comfortable wearing this to my own job. This next shade is very similar, and again, it's from Luxie. This is the shade Snickerdoodle. The main difference is the shift on top of the shade. This one, again, a little bit more blue, whereas this one's a little bit more green, same as what we were talking about before with these two shades. Here we have another Pretties for Your Face shade. This is called Jolt, and I think this is what they call like the polymorphs, if I remember correctly. This is a very flaky and sparkly shade, so if you're looking for neutral shades that aren't too sparkly, this one might not be for you, but it's a very beautiful like rosy brown base with a piecey gold sparkle that shifts to a couple of other colors, maybe mostly like silver and blue in there as well. But you can definitely see that the particle size in this is a lot bigger than anything we've been looking at so far. I still think that you could wear it to work, especially if this base color matches your skin tone better than mine. It could be just like a simple wash of shimmer over the top, and if you sheer it out even on like my skin tone, you can get something similar. The Monarch is a great neutral shadow option for those with deep to dark skin tones. It's got a darker brown, like rosy brown base to it, kind of the more saturated version of the base in Jolt, and on top you can see it's got a little bit of a pink to gold shimmer going on that is subtle enough that it's not going to look too colorful, but again adds something a little special compared to, you know, some of the palettes you might find from like mainstream brands. This is the shade Hot Rod from Luxie. It's a little bit crumbly in the base, but it's got a very warm reddish kind of brown base to it with a bluish silver sparkle on top that again is going to look mostly like wet on the eyes, not so much colorful on the eyes. If you're someone with a medium like red toned skin tone, then I think that this will blend in really well for you and look fabulous all over the eyes at work. I went ahead and zoomed out a little bit more so that way you can see all of the shades on my arm. We'll round out this arm of swatches with this last shade in this row. This is the Looksy shade Social Butterfly. It's got, again, a warm brown base. This one maybe leans a little bit more orangey in the base than some of the others. I would say Hot Rod and this shade Social Butterfly probably are the warmest in the base. And you can see this one's very golden in the shimmer on top, but I feel like for some skin tones, this could still be considered a pretty neutral shadow, and it's so beautiful in real life. I love this shade, so I couldn't not throw it in, even though compared to everything else on my arm, it's maybe a little bit more out there. Moving on to this bottom row, the first shade that we have is Animal Kingdom. This is similar to Social Butterfly, but this one has a much lighter peachy base, whereas Social Butterfly has a lot more depth to it. So if you are someone like with a skin tone closer to mine, this might be easier to pull off if you're looking for that golden sheen rather than Social Butterfly. And there they are to compare them a little bit more closely. You can also see the finishes aren't quite the same. This one more of like what I would say is like a sheen, whereas this one definitely has those visible sparkle particles. If you want something with even less of a base, you could go for something like Meteorite from Terra Moons, which is what this shadow is. You could also do something like Reserve Number 2 from Shine by SD, Champagne Punch from Looksy. There are a lot of shades that are essentially dupes for each other. This just happens to be the one I put in the palette. I've done dupe videos in the past, and I'll link them below if you want to see any dupes for any of these shades I have on my arms right now. Something that's got a similar base to Meteorite but is maybe a little less golden is the shade Angel Wings by Looksy. This one has something a little bit more green in the sparkle. As you can see, it does look a little bit less starkly yellow, and there is a little bit more base on it than there is in something like Meteorite, which has that really soft pink base. But personally, I think that this, for my own skin tone, is my favorite neutral, spectacular shadow. You'll notice too, there's been a lot of Looksy shadows in here. Looksy is a brand that I think does this category very, very well. This is another one of those Terra Moons shades that I was talking about. This one is Casium. You can see it's a little bit more of a yellow greeny kind of gold. And if you have an olive undertone, I think that this could be a beautiful shade for you in the workplace. This is a newer shade from Looksy called Chocolate Cherry from their most recent collection. It's got a taupe base with a silver and blue sparkle on top, but just like the colored sparkle in all of these shades, I don't think it's too strong that it could be considered like a blue eyeshadow. You can see that taupey base there. It's pretty cool. So depending on your skin tone, it may or may not work well and complement your skin tone or eye color, but for me personally, this is one I've been really enjoying. Now we've got another touch of Glam shade. This is funny because this is one of like the most affordable shades that Touch of Glam has, and it's one of my favorites. I love the texture of this shadow. This is called Lit, and this again, very taupe-y. You can see the base is a little bit darker than that one from Looksy, but they're definitely in the same color family. I would say too, it's got something similar to Tiara from Sydney Grace. The last one we've got in this palette is the shade Rubidium from Terra Moons. Again, that same texture as the other two in this like kind of collection, I guess. This one you can see though, I didn't know how to describe it because there is something kind of gold-ish to it, but it's got a very neutral, almost like bronze mink kind of base. It looks similar to these other two that I just swatched in the base, which is why I put it here. But I don't know, to me this is the most neutral out of the three within that collection from Terra Moons. And just to point those out, that's this one, and this one. So there they are all together. I did also have 3 single potted shadows that I wanted to show off. This first one is from J-Cat Beauty. This is the Prismetal line, and this specifically is the shade Chrome Crusher. This is pretty deep, but it is a beautiful one and done, work appropriate kind of shadow, especially if you've got a deeper skin tone and it's not quite as dramatic as it is on me personally. But you can see that silver sparkle running throughout is very unique and beautiful, but also isn't like too much. So this is one that I love wearing out and about, and it's so easy to throw on and it blends out well. So it's one that I highly recommend. Next, we've got a Moira shade. This is the shade Infinity, and I will be showing another Moira shade in my part 2 to this video. But this one specifically is very neutral. Again, it's got that silver sparkle on top, similar to the J-Cat one, but obviously it's a lot lighter in the base. This is one that secretly I keep in my office at work most of the time, and if I want to throw on a little bit of eyeshadow but I didn't have time at home, I'll take this, dip my finger in, rub it all over my eyes, and I'm good to go. And then lastly, we have the Essence Melted Chrome shade Ironic number 2. It is a beautiful shade that kind of sits right in between the 2 that I've already swatched. You can see it's got a little bit more depth than this one from Moira, but definitely not as deep as the one from J-Cat. They all are kind of in that similar, like, cool toned with silver sparkle family though. Now, let me go ahead. I think I need to zoom out my camera a bit, but I'll show you all of these all together one last time. For the sake of catching the sparkles, I wanted to go ahead and move the palette out of the way, but I feel like you can really see the kind of spectrum we have going here. We've got some deeper rosy shades, some warmer peachy shades, some more like smoky cool tone shades, and then some more, I don't know, like champagne shades, I guess. All of them together though, I think would make a beautiful neutral shimmer palette. Oh my gosh, could you imagine? There are some other shades that I think work in this category as well that are in palettes that I have, but let me know if you'd want to see that continuation of this series down in the comments below, and let us know any shades that you like to wear to work that kind of fall into this balance, or you know, you could be wearing them other places, but that fall into this balance of being sparkly and special but still neutral in tone. And I hope that this was helpful for you. Until I see you next time, I hope that you stay safe, stay healthy, stay happy. Bye!